go get what we want.
Hey! It's about that time!
We know what we want to do. It's another opportunity for us to get better.
Alabama has won the match.
How you compete. That means how hard you play, how tough you play, how you can sustain in tough circumstances.
Welcome to Tide TV This Week, brought to you by Renaissance Bank. I'm Christopher England alongside Maggie Hetzel. And Maggie, football season is over. Several of our spring sports are in action or getting ready for their season, and basketball is at the midpoint of their season as ACC play is in full swing.
And after splitting their first two Southeastern Conference matchups, the Alabama men's basketball team, they traveled to the tough place to play, Lexington, this past Saturday to take on 14th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats in Rupp Arena.
It was the first half of scoring runs. Kentucky jumped out to an early 8-4 lead, but Alabama responded with a 6-0 run to take a 10-8 lead with just under 6 minutes played. The Wildcats answered back with a 13-2 run to jump out to a 9-point lead at 21-12. That first half of runs continued as the Crimson Tide used a 12-5 run to cut the Wildcats' lead to just 2 at 26-24 with 7:28 to go in the half. But Kentucky closed out the half, outscoring Alabama 19-11 to take a 45-35 lead into the locker room at the half.
And Kentucky extended their lead into the 15 in the opening moments of the second half, but Alabama went on another one. This one, a 9-1 run, cut the deficit to 7 with just over 13 minutes to play. The Crimson Tide, they kept chipping away at the Wildcats' lead with 7.5 minutes to play. Herbert Jones converted the basket and free throw to make it a 4-point game at 59-55. Kentucky, though, they stretched their lead back out to 7, but a 3-pointer made by John Petty right there made it a 4-point game once again with 2:44 to go, down by 5. Petty made it a one-possession game at 70-67 with a layup and the goaltend with 2:14 remaining. However, Kentucky would score the final 6 points of the game despite outscoring the Wildcats in the second half. 32-31, the 10-point first half set was just too much to overcome the 14th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats. They won it 76-67.
We've been shooting it at a pretty high clip. We needed to shoot it a lot better than 4-21 from 3 to be able to have a chance in this game. So you got to credit them. This is the third time I've played against them as a coach. They always play hard. Their defense is always elite. They got length all over the floor and athleticism. They try to take you out of, what you do. Kyra's been good for us and Petty's been good for us. They limit Kyra to 10. I thought he played pretty well. They're going to make it hard for him to score, but we needed other guys to make shots when he sprayed it out, and when you go 4-21, it makes it tough. And then on our defensive end, I thought the second half was a whole lot better than the first half. They shoot 56% in the first half. Richards is hitting the jumpers. Their bigs are hurting us. I didn't think we played hard enough and contested them. So tribute to our guys as to how hard they played in the second half. But that Kentucky team, when they've got a roll, they're as good as anybody I've seen. I haven't seen everybody in the country, but they're pretty good.
The Crimson Tide had 3 score in double figures, with Herbert Jones leading the way with 18 points and 7 rebounds and 4 assists. John Petty Jr. finished with 16 points, 7 rebounds, and a career-high 4 blocks. And Kyra Lewis Jr. was the other double-digit scorer. Lewis added 10 points and a team-high 8 rebounds and 4 assists.
The Wildcats have been ranked #1 this season and are currently 10th in the latest Associated Press Top 25, but one of the toughest teams to go play in Kentucky.
Yes, they are. And even though the Tide lost after the game, Kentucky coach John Calipari had some positive words to say about the Crimson Tide.
But I told Nate after the game, I said, do we play you again? He says, no. I said, thank goodness. I said, there's no one that wants to play Alabama right now. They're taking 30-some threes. They're making shots from 4 different positions. They're driving the ball. And, when you have Herbert Jones doing what he does, I told him after the game, the way you play and your energy and your effort, that is a skill. That's a skill. And the way he did it, look, we're done. If we have to play him again, it'll be in the tournament, and I will dread that if we have to.
You know who didn't want to play Alabama? Auburn. Alabama welcomed the undefeated and 4th-ranked Auburn Tigers to Coleman Coliseum on Wednesday night. Playing in front of a sold-out crowd, the Crimson Tide brought the packed house to their feet early on with 2 monstrous dunks by Herb Jones and Alex Reese. The Crimson Tide then used an 8-0 run to jump out to a double-digit lead at 21-11 with 7:47 to go in the half. The Tigers slashed the Tide's lead to just 6, but a 7-0 run capped by a Beetle Bolden three-pointer right there put Alabama back on top by 11, 28-17, with just under 4 minutes to play in the opening half. Alabama led by as many as 14 in the first half, but Auburn closed the half on a 5-0 run to cut Alabama's lead at the break to 9 at 36-27.
The Tigers clawed their way back into the game at the start of the second half with a 12-6 run. A three-pointer made by Anthony McElmore made it a 3-point Alabama lead, 42-39. The Crimson Tide, they didn't waver as they started slowly taking that lead back by a 3 by Alex Reese with just over 13 minutes to go, put Alabama back on top by 8, 49-41. Auburn countered and got it to within 3 once again at 50-47 on back-to-back three-pointers from Jamal Johnson, and with just over 11 minutes to go. But from there, it was all Alabama. Crimson Tide closed out the game, outscoring Auburn 33-17. Crimson Tide never trailed throughout the game, the entire game, as Alabama took down 4th-ranked and undefeated Auburn in dominating fashion, 83-64.
A huge win for us. You know, I first want to thank the crowd. That was unbelievable. It's the first time we've had a sellout since I've been here, so now we know what it can sound like in there. The students were great. Everybody was great. It's the kind of environment you want to play in front of. I told our players before the game, I think we've worked hard enough over the last 9 months to deserve to play in an environment like this. Let's go out there and give it everything we got. I thought they did right out of the gate. I knew we were ready to go. Herb made some huge plays, defensive end on the glass out of the gate. I turned to the assistants, like Herb came ready to play. I just think we kept guarding. You know, the offense struggled at times, was not our best offensive game, but defensively, that might have been our best game of the year. So that's how you win big games, defense and rebounding. So I was happy with our effort. You know, we ended up only getting out-rebounded by 2, where we were down early, a lot bigger than that. So I thought we did a pretty good job coming back. And when they had to go small, actually helped us rebound the ball a little bit better when Wiley wasn't in there. So huge win for us. So hopefully this gets us going on a winning streak here.
Kyra Lewis Jr. led all scorers with 25 points. Herb Jones had his second double-double of the season as he scored 14 and grabbed 12 rebounds. Alex Reese was 3 of 6 from beyond the arc as he contributed 13 points, and Beetle Bolden added 11 points off the bench. Alabama forced 21 Auburn turnovers and hit 78% of their free throws. The Tide connected on 25 of 30 from the foul line in the second half, including 17 of 19 in the final 8 minutes.
And what a win by the Tide. Let's take an all-access look back at Alabama's dominating win over Auburn. It's brought to you by ATI.
Undefeated and 4th-ranked Auburn looks to stay perfect as they come to T-Town to take on Alabama. 2 of the top 10 scoring teams in college basketball. John Petty for 3.
Rises, fire, 3.
Here we go, off and running. Whoa! Herbert Jones with the tomahawk. Here's Reese with the drive and the jam.
Perfect steal for Kyra Lewis to the right for the flush. Rises, fires, and rattles in a 3. That gets the student section going and everybody else.
Reese transition 3. Big shot, Alex Reese.
83-64. Alabama leads it. Start to finish, and in the process, hands the 4th-ranked team in America their first loss of the year.
That just doesn't get old. I could watch that all day, Maggie. And instead of the fans rushing the court, the players rushed the fans and celebrated with them in the stands.
And as we go to break, let's take a look at the celebration and go all access inside the locker room as the Tide celebrated their big win over Auburn.
Hey, I told you what was gonna happen. We made it happen.
Tide TV this week is brought to you by ATI. Built by Bama. Rebuilt by ATI Physical Therapy. Ford and the F-150. Tough runs in our family. See your local Ford dealer today. AFS, a Bayless company. Your foundation and waterproofing specialists. Serving you since 2000.
Nate Oates' first season, he has changed the complexion of this program rather quickly.
Oh, baby, what a jumper! He'll go down the lane. He'll throw it down.
What a play! Oh, mercy! With authority! My goodness!
Bama fans here at Coleman are on their feet. 3-pointer on the way. Bottom!
What a road win for Alabama. At the buzzer, count it if it goes. It goes!
Top of the key, a three. Got it!
And there's Walker.
Welcome back. The Alabama women's basketball team was on the road this past weekend looking for a win themselves.
They were. The women were looking for their first SEC victory and first victory of 2020 as the Tide traveled to Auburn to take on the Tigers this past Sunday.
Auburn took control of the game early as the Tigers jumped out to an early 8-point lead at 14-6 and closed out the first period leading by 6 at 20-14. However, the game turned in the Tide's favor in a big way in the second period. With a score tied at 26, the Crimson Tide went on a huge 25-0 run to take control of the game at 51-26. Over the second and third periods, Alabama outscored Auburn 43-13 to take a 57-33 lead from the third period. From there, the Tide cruised to an easy 75-48 win over the Auburn Tigers.
The 75-48 win was the largest margin of victory ever for the Tide in Auburn. Jasmine Walker recorded her third double-double of the season as she had a game-high 23 points and 10 rebounds. Jordan Lewis added 16 points and 6 rebounds. Sierra Johnson and Aria Copeland were the other double-digit scorers for the Tide. Johnson had 11, with Copeland chipping in 10. A big week for Alabama basketball against Auburn. 2 big blowout wins.
And the wins improve the Tide's records to 11-6 on the year. Let's take an all-access look back at Alabama's dominating victory over Auburn. It's brought to you by ATI.
Doesn't matter the location, it doesn't matter the sport. It's Alabama against Auburn, and today it's women's basketball. Lewis takes it out to Walker, right wing, a 3 on the way. Got it! To Lewis, wide open, right side 3 is up, and in. Jumper, too strong, rebound by Copeland, right side layup good, counted, she's fouled. Richardson down the right side of the lane, finds Walker, right corner a 3, perfect. Bounce pass to Walker, right corner, here comes another 3, it's good. Auburn needs a timeout. Christy Curry clapping her hands on the floor, and the Crimson Tide are fired up inside. Bounce pass top of the key, Davis, hand in her face, 3 is up, 3 is in. Free throw line Davis, a wide open Lewis, left corner, her 3 is perfect. Pressured through 2 defenders, takes the elbow, then left side Johnson, her 3 is up, her 3 is in. And Walker gets it back. Walker spins around, left side layup, up, and she's fouled. Alabama continues scoring at Auburn. Final score, Alabama 75, Auburn 48.
Tide TV This Week is brought to you by ATI. Built by Bama. Rebuilt by ATI Physical Therapy. The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Trust each other, love each other, let's do this for one another.
She's meant so much to this program.
But I am so proud of this team and where we're headed.
What a moment for the Crimson Tide when they needed it the most.
A double-double was nuts.
We are built by champions.
So much airtime.
We are built by Bama.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week, brought to you by Renaissance Bank. The Alabama gymnastics team began their 46-year competition as the Tide opened the 2020 season on the road this past Friday night as they took on their in-state rival, the Auburn Tigers.
A preseason top 15 matchup, Alabama was ranked 10th with Auburn coming in at 13th and the preseason top 25. The Crimson Tide started the lead off on the uneven bars, led by a 9.875s from senior Shea Mahoney and freshman Makari Doggett. The Tide finished the uneven bars with a total of a 49.175 on vault. Junior Lexi Graber led the Crimson Tide with a 9.875 en route to a team total of a 49.075. Alabama scored a 49.3 on floor, led by a pair of 9.9s from Lexi Graber and senior Maddie Desch.
It all came down to the last rotation. Luisa Blanco led the Tide with a 9.9 on beam, but a pair of falls dropped the Tide score to a 48.525 team total. That opened the door for Auburn to steal the victory. The Tigers defeat the Tide 196.625 to 196.025. This was just the second time since 1980 that Alabama has lost to Auburn. Since then, the Crimson Tide has a 127-2 record over the Tigers and a 127-11 record all time.
The Alabama softball team returned to the Diamond this past weekend for their first practice of the spring. Up next, we'll take you out to Rhodes Stadium with the Tide for a sneak peek of this year's squad.
Champions for the regular season, and Alabama wins it.
Welcome back. Believe it or not, we're less than a month away from the start of softball season. Alabama gets back in action on February 7th as the Tide will take on North Carolina and Florida State in the Joanne Graff Classic in Tallahassee, Florida.
This week, the Southeastern Conference coaches released their preseason poll for the SEC, and the defending SEC champions are atop the list. The coaches selected the Crimson Tide as their preseason number one in the SEC, as Alabama earned 11 of the 13 first-place votes. Tennessee is second behind the Tide, with LSU, Kentucky, and Florida rounding out the top 5.
This past Sunday, the defending SEC champions held their first practice of the spring. Let's head out to Rhodes Stadium with the Tide as they get ready for the 2020 season. Thanks.
First day. Go here.
I firmly believe that we have an opportunity to have one of the best pitching staffs we've ever had, with 4 girls who literally could be the #1 pitcher. So you have 2 seniors in Sarah Cornell and Crystal Goodman. You have a sophomore in Montana Fouts, and we have a freshman, Alexis Guilfoyle. So 4 of those are outstanding. So kind of my emphasis for the first 3 weeks of spring ball is to match the team defense to the pitching staff. You know, if we can have a really good team defense and have a really good start from every pitcher, we'll be fine.
We're so excited. I mean, just walking up the hill on the way to practice today, we were just like literally jumping up just because we were just so excited to be out here on the field together. I think we had a really good season last year, but never be satisfied with that because I think that we could have went further. So just putting everything that we can into every game, and I think it will take us far away.
I think they're out to prove a point. Last year we were under the radar. This year we're not sure what's going to happen. But I think all of them are driven to kind of prove a point that last year wasn't really a fluke. Like I said earlier, no matter how many kids you have coming back, how many kids you lose, it's a different year, it's a different team, and it just takes some time to develop that chemistry.
D24!
Makes the catch!
An unbelievable play! Swing and a miss, strike 3.
Me, wow!
And it's an inside the park home
run. Number 40, Jasmine Walker.
It's out to Walker, right wing, a 3 on the way. Got it! Jasmine Walker now in front, 6-5 on the plays.
Point blank range for Herb Jones, a baker's dozen. John Petty for 3.
Those are our BBVA top plays of the week. Now let's take a look at our players of the week, brought to you by Payless Drugs. Jasmine Walker recorded her third double-double of the season as she scored 23 points and grabbed 10 rebounds in the big 75-48 win over in-state rival Auburn. Walker connected on 4 3-pointers as she added 2 blocks and a steal in the win.
And All-American swimmer Kinsey McMahon was named the SEC Swimmer of the Week for her performance in the win over Florida State. Winning a trio of freestyle events, McMahon won the 1650 freestyle by nearly 40 seconds. She claimed first in the 200 freestyle and closed out the meet with a 6-second victory, and the 500 freestyle. McMahon's performance helped the Tide earn a decisive 180-120 victory over the Seminoles.
And Kyra Lewis had a huge game with a big win over undefeated and 4th-ranked Auburn. Lewis led all scorers with 25 points as he shot 8 of 14 from the field and knocked down 8 of 9 from the free throw line. Now let's take a look at next week's schedule for the Crimson Tide, and it's a busy one. What's next is brought to you by Renaissance Bank.
Men's tennis will host a doubleheader on Monday with a couple of in-state schools. George Husak's squad will host Stanford at 1 and North Alabama at 6. Also on Monday at 6, the Alabama women's basketball team will take on the Tennessee Lady Vols in Knoxville. You can watch it live on the SEC Network.
Men's basketball will be in the Volunteer State this week as well. The men will take on Vanderbilt in Nashville on Wednesday night at 8. That game will also be on the SEC Network, and the women will return to action on Thursday. Alabama will host Texas A&M for a 7 o'clock matchup on SEC Network Plus.
Men's tennis will also be back in action on Friday as the Tide host Dartmouth at 6. Then on Saturday, the Alabama women's tennis team will host a doubleheader. It will be an early start time on Saturdays. The women will take on Indiana at 10, and then later in the evening, the Tide will take on Lipscomb at 6.
The men's basketball team will take part in the Big 12 SEC Challenge on Saturday as the Tide will host Kansas State at 5 on ESPN2, and gymnastics will take place in the Metroplex Challenge in Fort Worth, Texas.
And wrapping up the very busy week on Sunday, men's tennis hosts Virginia Tech at noon, and women's basketball takes on Vanderbilt here in Coleman Coliseum at 2 o'clock on SEC Network Plus.
Thanks again for joining us for another edition of Tide TV This Week.
See you next week, everybody. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield IMG College.